The rain had been falling for hours, not the gentle kind of rain that made a house feel warm and safe. This rain was violent. It hammered against the roof of the old farmhouse, rattled the windows, and turned the surrounding fields into a dark, endless sea. Emma Carter stood barefoot in the hallway. She was wearing a thin white nightgown, her hair loose around her shoulders. Her breathing was shallow. In her trembling hand, she held a flashlight. The beam moved slowly across the darkness. The hallway was empty, yet someone was breathing. Emma could hear it. A slow inhale, a long exhale, coming from somewhere beneath the floorboards. She swallowed hard. Daniel? No answer. She turned toward the bedroom. The door was open, the bed was empty. Her husband's shoes were still beside it. His phone was on the nightstand, but Daniel was gone. Emma's heart began pounding. Daniel? Nothing. Then she heard it. A faint sound coming from outside. 3 soft knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Emma froze. The sound had come from the back door. She slowly walked toward it. Every step made the old wooden floor creak beneath her feet. She reached the kitchen. The back door was slightly open. Cold rain blew through the gap. Emma stared at the darkness beyond it. Then she saw something. A figure. Standing in the middle of the field. A woman, no umbrella, no coat. Barefoot, wearing a long white dress that moved gently in the wind. Emma's blood ran cold. The woman was staring directly at the house, and although she was nearly 100 yards away, Emma knew she was looking at her. Then the woman raised one hand. Slowly. She pointed toward the old barn. Emma's flashlight flickered. Once. Twice. Then went completely dark. The woman disappeared. Emma stumbled backward. Daniel. A voice whispered behind her, so close that she felt warm breath against her ear. He's waiting for you. Emma spun around. No one was there. She ran. Through the kitchen, across the hallway, toward the stairs, but before she could reach them, the old grandfather clock began to strike. 1, 2, 3. Emma looked at the clock. The hands were frozen. 3:13 a.m. The final bell echoed through the house. Then, from beneath the floor, came the sound of a child crying. Emma covered her mouth to stop herself from screaming. The crying became louder, closer, until suddenly, a man's voice came from the darkness beneath the house. Daniel's voice. But something was terribly wrong with it. It sounded distant, almost as though he was speaking from somewhere very far away. Emma! She closed her eyes. A tear rolled down her cheek. Then his voice came again. Don't come looking for me. The lights in the house went out. Complete darkness. And somewhere outside, the old barn door slowly opened, cut to black. 3 weeks earlier, the sun was shining, and Emma still believed they had finally found their dream home. 3 weeks earlier, the road seemed to stretch endlessly beneath the afternoon sun. Emma Carter rested her forehead against the passenger side window and watched the city disappear behind them. Tall buildings became smaller, then fewer, then nothing. Only open fields remained. Golden grass moved gently beneath the warm breeze, creating waves that seemed to continue all the way to the horizon. For the first time in years, Emma felt like she could breathe. She turned toward the driver. Daniel was smiling. One hand rested casually on the steering wheel while the other tapped against the rhythm of the music playing softly through the speakers. "You're doing it again," he said. Emma raised an eyebrow. "Doing what?" "Staring at the countryside like you've never seen grass before." She laughed. "Maybe I haven't." "You grew up in the suburbs." "Exactly." Daniel smiled. "You're officially a country girl now." Emma laughed again. "I haven't even seen the house yet." "You'll love it." "You've said that about 20 times." Because I'm right. She shook her head. You've also said there are no neighbors. Almost no neighbors. Daniel. Okay. He glanced at her. One neighbor. How far away? About half a mile. Emma stared at him. That's not a neighbor. Daniel laughed. See? You're already adapting. She smiled. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful. The kind of silence that comes when two people have spent years fighting through difficult seasons together and finally realize they might have made it to the other side. Emma reached across the center console and placed her hand over Daniel's. He squeezed it gently. We really did it, she whispered. Daniel looked at her. Yeah. We actually left. Yeah. The city. Behind us. She smiled. I still can't believe it. Daniel brought her hand to his lips. You deserve this. Emma looked out the window again. For years their lives had been consumed by noise, traffic, deadlines, phones, bills, endless meetings, neighbors arguing through apartment walls, sirens at night. Neither of them had ever truly rested. Then, 6 months earlier, Daniel had found the property. A small farmhouse listed far below market value. Most people had ignored it. The house was old. The land was isolated. The previous owners had left decades ago. But Daniel had seen something different. Possibility. A place where they could start again. A place where they could finally build the life they had always talked about. Emma had needed more convincing. But eventually, she had fallen in love with the photographs. Especially one, the farmhouse at sunset. White wooden walls, dark green shutters, a wide porch, and fields stretching behind it. It looked almost unreal, like a painting. Now, they were finally there. Daniel slowed the car. Emma leaned forward. Is that it? Daniel smiled. Turn around. She did, and stopped breathing for a moment. The house appeared beyond a long row of trees. It stood at the end of a narrow gravel driveway. Exactly like the photograph. Almost. There was something different about seeing it in person. The house seemed larger, older, more beautiful, and somehow more watchful. Emma stared through the windshield. Daniel, I know. It's beautiful. I told you. The car moved slowly up the driveway. Gravel crunched beneath the tires. Birds flew from the nearby trees. A soft wind moved through the fields. Everything was peaceful. Perfect. Then Emma noticed the barn. It stood several yards behind the house, much older than the farmhouse. Its wooden walls were darkened by years of rain and sun. One large door hung slightly open. Emma frowned. Was the barn open in the pictures? Daniel glanced toward it. I don't remember. You should close it. We'll do it later. Emma continued staring. Something about the barn made her uncomfortable. She couldn't explain why. It was just an old building, nothing more. She turned away. Come on, Daniel said. We're home. The front door opened with a long, tired creak. Emma stepped inside. Dust floated through the sunlight entering from the windows. The living room was enormous. A stone fireplace dominated one wall. Old wooden floors stretched toward the kitchen. There were large windows overlooking the fields. Emma slowly turned in a circle. Oh my God. Daniel smiled. Good, oh my God. She laughed. Very good, oh my God. He walked behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. We're really here. Emma leaned against his chest. I think I'm going to love this place. You said that before you even saw it. I know. They laughed. For several minutes they simply stood there, together, listening to the quiet. Then Emma whispered, Do you hear that? Daniel looked around. Hear what? Nothing. He smiled. That's the point. Emma smiled back. But as they continued exploring the house, she noticed something strange. There was a faint smell in the hallway. Sweet. floral, almost like lavender. She stopped. What is that? Daniel sniffed the air. Flowers? There aren't any flowers inside. Maybe from the previous owners. Emma shrugged. Probably. She continued walking. Neither of them noticed the old photograph hanging at the end of the hallway. A family, standing outside the farmhouse. A father, a mother, a young boy, and a little girl. The photograph was nearly a century old. Yet, the girl's face was strangely clear. Her eyes seemed fixed directly on the camera, directly on Emma. By sunset, most of the boxes had been moved inside. Daniel carried the last one into the bedroom. Emma stood by the window. The fields were glowing orange beneath the setting sun. It doesn't feel real, she whispered. Daniel placed the box down. You okay? She smiled. More than okay. He walked toward her. Then what are you thinking? Emma looked at the enormous field behind the house. I think... She paused. I think this might actually be home. Daniel kissed her forehead. Welcome home. They held each other as the sun disappeared. Neither noticed the little girl standing at the edge of the field, barefoot, wearing a white dress, watching the house, watching them. And when Emma finally looked outside, the girl was gone. That night, Emma and Daniel sat on the porch. 2 glasses of wine rested on the wooden railing. Crickets filled the darkness with their endless song. The sky was covered with stars. More stars than Emma had seen in years. This is perfect, she whispered. Daniel smiled. Tomorrow we start fixing the garden. And the kitchen. And the barn. Emma looked at him. The barn? We should clean it. She hesitated. Maybe. Daniel noticed her expression. You still don't like it? I don't know. It's just an old barn. I know. What bothers you? Emma looked toward the darkness. I don't know. Daniel reached for her hand. Then we don't have to go near it tonight. She smiled. Thank you. They sat together in silence. A few minutes later, Daniel went inside to get another blanket. Emma remained alone on the porch. The wind suddenly stopped. The crickets went silent. Every sound disappeared. Emma looked around. Her smile faded. The fields were completely still. Then she heard something. A child's voice, very faint, coming from somewhere beyond the trees. Emma. She froze. Her heart skipped. She stood slowly. Hello? Nothing. She stared into the darkness. Daniel? No answer. Then the voice came again, even softer, closer. Emma. She took one step toward the edge of the porch. The screen door opened behind her. Emma screamed. Daniel appeared carrying a blanket. Hey. She turned around. Sorry. He looked concerned. What happened? I thought I heard someone. Someone. A child. Daniel looked toward the fields. There was nothing. There's no one out there. I know. He placed the blanket around her shoulders. Maybe it was an animal. Maybe. She tried to smile, but her eyes remained fixed on the darkness. Far beyond the house, near the old barn. Something moved. Emma didn't see it, not yet, but the house had heard her name, and for the first time in decades, someone had come home. The house was silent, too silent. Emma lay awake beneath the blankets, staring at the ceiling. Beside her, Daniel was sleeping peacefully. His breathing was slow and steady. She checked the clock on the nightstand. 2:47 a.m. Emma sighed and closed her eyes. She tried to relax. The mattress felt unfamiliar. The sounds were unfamiliar. Even the darkness seemed different here. In the city, there had always been noise, cars, neighbors, sirens, elevators, voices. Here, there was nothing, just silence. Emma turned onto her side. Then she heard it, a faint creaking sound. From somewhere downstairs. She opened her eyes. Creak. Then silence. Emma stared into the darkness. Probably the old house settling. She pulled the blanket closer. Creak. This time, it was louder. Emma slowly sat up. Daniel didn't move. Daniel. He murmured something in his sleep. She waited. Nothing. Then came another sound. A soft, dragging noise, like something being pulled slowly across the wooden floor. Emma's heart began beating faster. She reached for Daniel's shoulder. Daniel. He opened his eyes. What? I heard something downstairs. He looked at the clock. At almost 3 in the morning? I think someone is there. Daniel sat up. For a moment they listened together. Nothing. He smiled sleepily. Probably the house. Emma frowned. What does that mean? Old houses make noises. She looked toward the bedroom door. I'm serious. I know. Daniel kissed her forehead. Stay here. He got out of bed. Emma immediately grabbed his hand. Don't. Daniel looked at her. You want me to leave you alone up here? No. Then come with me. They walked downstairs together. Daniel turned on the hallway light. It flickered. Once, twice, then stayed on. Emma looked around. Nothing had changed. The living room was exactly as they had left it. The kitchen was empty. The back door was locked. Daniel checked the windows. Everything was secure. See? He smiled. Nothing. Emma crossed her arms. Then what did I hear? Maybe a raccoon. Inside the house? Daniel laughed softly. Okay, probably not a raccoon. Emma almost smiled. Then she noticed something. The chair. A wooden rocking chair stood near the fireplace. They had seen it earlier, but Emma distinctly remembered leaving it facing the window. Now, it was facing the staircase. She stared at it. Daniel! He followed her gaze. What? That chair. What about it? It wasn't there. Daniel walked over. He touched it. Are you sure? Yes. He looked at her. Maybe we moved it. We didn't. Silence. Daniel studied the chair. Then he shrugged. We've been moving furniture all day. Emma didn't answer. She knew they hadn't moved it, but she didn't want to argue. Let's go back upstairs. Daniel nodded. They turned. Emma looked over her shoulder one last time. The chair was still there, facing the staircase. At 3:13 a.m., Emma woke again. She didn't know why. Her eyes opened instantly. No dream, no sound, just awake. She looked at Daniel, still asleep. Then she heard something. A whisper, very faint, almost impossible to understand. Emma held her breath. The whisper came again. Emma. Her entire body froze. She sat up. The bedroom door was open. She was certain she had closed it. Daniel? He didn't wake. The whisper came again. This time, from the hallway. Emma. She slowly got out of bed. Her feet touched the cold wooden floor. She walked toward the door. The hallway was dark. Moonlight entered through the windows. Emma stared down the corridor. Nothing. Then she noticed something on the floor. A trail. Small wet footprints. They began near the stairs and continued toward the bedroom. Emma's heart stopped. They were children's footprints, bare feet, wet, fresh. Emma stepped backward. Her hand covered her mouth. Daniel. He suddenly woke. What happened? She pointed. Daniel turned on the lamp. The footprints were gone. Emma stared at the floor. Nothing. No water. No footprints. Nothing. Daniel looked at her. Emma. I saw them. Saw what? Footprints. Where? Right there. He looked down. There was nothing. Emma's breathing became unsteady. They were here. Daniel got out of bed. He walked toward her. Hey, I'm not imagining things. I didn't say you were. You're thinking it. I'm thinking you're tired. Emma looked at him. For the first time since they arrived, she felt completely alone. Not because Daniel wasn't there, but because something had happened that he couldn't see. And she knew. Whatever it was, wasn't finished. The next morning, sunlight filled the kitchen. Everything seemed normal again. Daniel prepared coffee. Emma sat at the table, staring through the window. You're quiet. She looked at him. Did you sleep? Not really. Daniel placed a cup in front of her. About last night. Emma sighed. I know what you're going to say. No. He sat beside her. I'm not going to tell you that you imagined it. She looked surprised. Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. I believe you heard something. Emma looked into his eyes. Thank you. But she knew there would be a but. But I think there's an explanation. Emma smiled faintly. Of course you do. Daniel kissed her hand. That's why you married me. She laughed. For a moment, the fear disappeared. Then something struck the kitchen window. Tap. Both of them turned. Nothing. Another sound. Tap. Emma stood. What was that? Daniel walked toward the window. Outside, the garden was empty. Then he noticed something. A small object sitting on the windowsill. A child's hair ribbon. Old. Faded. Dark red. Emma slowly opened the window. She picked it up. Where did this come from? Daniel didn't answer, because he had just noticed something else. Behind the house, the old barn door was open, wider than before, and on the ground leading toward it were small footprints. This time they were visible, fresh, wet. They disappeared beneath the shadow of the barn. Emma looked at Daniel. Neither spoke. Then, from inside the barn, came the faint sound of a music box, a slow, delicate melody, playing all by itself. Daniel's expression changed. Stay here. Emma shook her head. No. Emma, I'm coming with you. They walked toward the barn together. Neither noticed the upstairs window. Behind the glass, a little girl was watching them. She raised one finger to her lips. Shh. Then she slowly disappeared. The barn stood at the edge of the property. During the day, it looked almost harmless. Old, forgotten. Its dark wooden walls were covered with climbing vines, and the roof had several missing shingles. But now, under the pale morning sky, it looked different. The large door was still open. Daniel stopped a few feet away. Did you open this? Emma shook her head. No. He looked at her. Maybe the wind. Emma stared at the opening. There isn't any wind. She was right. The trees were completely still. Daniel walked closer. The smell reached them first. Damp wood, dust, and something sweet. Lavender. Emma immediately stopped. That smell again. Daniel looked inside. I smell it. They exchanged a glance. For the first time, Daniel didn't have an explanation. They entered together. The interior was darker than expected. Old farming tools hung from the walls. Wooden crates were stacked in the corners. A rusted bicycle leaned against one wall. Cobwebs covered the ceiling. But there was no music. Emma frowned. It stopped. What? The music. Daniel looked around. You heard it too? Emma nodded. He looked at her carefully. I thought maybe I imagined it. You didn't. Silence. Then, click. Something moved in the darkness. Daniel immediately turned. Who's there? Nothing answered. He took his phone from his pocket and turned on the flashlight. The beam traveled across the barn. Nothing. Then Emma noticed something beneath an old wooden table. Daniel. He followed her gaze. A small box, covered in dust. Emma crouched down. She reached for it. Daniel grabbed her wrist. Wait. She looked at him. Why? I don't know. He released her. Emma slowly pulled the box into the light. It was a music box, small, beautiful, made of dark, polished wood. A tiny silver ballerina stood in the center. Emma brushed the dust away. There was an engraving on the lid. A single name. Elise. She whispered it. Elise. Daniel frowned. Who is Elise? I don't know. Emma opened the lid. The ballerina began turning. Music filled the barn, the exact same melody they had heard moments earlier. Emma's face went pale. Daniel immediately closed the lid. The music stopped. Neither moved. Then, from somewhere behind them, a child's voice whispered, "Don't." Emma turned. What? The barn was empty. Daniel looked around. Did you hear that? Emma nodded. Someone said don't. They stood frozen. Then the music box began playing again. Even though the lid was closed, Daniel grabbed Emma's hand. We're leaving. But before they could move, the music stopped, and a small voice came from the darkness. This time, much clearer. She doesn't want you here. Emma's heart pounded. Who? Silence. Daniel raised his flashlight. Who are you? Nothing. Then, a child's laughter echoed through the barn. They ran. Outside, Emma struggled to catch her breath. Daniel closed the barn door. Then he secured it with an old metal latch. That's it. Emma stared at him. What? We don't go back in there. She nodded. Agreed. They walked toward the house. Halfway there, Emma stopped. Daniel. He turned. She was staring at the upstairs window. Look. The curtains were moving. Someone was standing behind them. A small silhouette. Watching. Daniel stared. Is that... Before he finished, the curtain fell. The window was empty. Daniel ran toward the house. Emma followed. They rushed upstairs. The bedroom was empty. The window was locked. No one was there. Daniel searched every room. Nothing. Finally, he returned to the bedroom. It's impossible. Emma stood beside the window. I know. He looked at her. What do you think we're dealing with? She shook her head. I don't know. Then she noticed something. A small, wet footprint on the wooden floor, right beside the bed. Daniel saw it too. Neither spoke. That evening they drove into town. There was a small grocery store several miles away. The cashier was an elderly woman named Mrs. Whitmore. She looked up when Emma mentioned the house. The woman's smile disappeared. What did you say? The farmhouse on Miller Road. Mrs. Whitmore stared at her. You bought that house? Daniel nodded. Yes. The woman slowly looked toward the window. How long? Since last week. Mrs. Whitmore lowered her voice. You shouldn't stay there. Daniel exchanged a glance with Emma. Why? The woman didn't answer. Emma stepped closer. We found something in the barn. What? A music box. Mrs. Whitmore's face went completely white. She whispered, Elise. Emma's stomach tightened. You know her? The old woman looked directly into her eyes. Everyone in this town knows her. Who was she? Mrs. Whitmore hesitated. Then she said, she was the little girl who disappeared. When? 1948. Daniel frowned. Disappeared from where? The woman looked at him. The farmhouse. Emma felt a chill run through her body. Did they ever find her? Mrs. Whitmore slowly shook her head. No. Did they find her parents? No. Anyone? The woman looked down. Nothing. Emma whispered, What happened? Mrs. Whitmore leaned closer. People say the family heard a child crying beneath the house. Daniel's expression changed. Beneath the house? The woman nodded. They searched everywhere. She paused. Then, one morning, the family was gone. Emma's voice trembled. All of them? All of them. Mrs. Whitmore looked toward the door. That was the last time anyone lived there. Daniel stared at her. Then why was the house empty all these years? The old woman looked at Emma. Because every family that tried to stay. She stopped. Emma waited. Finally, Mrs. Whitmore whispered, "They heard the music." The drive home was silent. Neither Emma nor Daniel spoke. The sky had darkened. Clouds gathered above the fields. When they reached the property, Emma noticed something. The barn door was open again. Daniel had locked it. He was certain. They got out of the car. Emma stared at the barn. "I don't want to go inside." "We won't." Daniel took her hand. "We're going home." They walked toward the house. Then, the music began. Very faint, coming from the barn. Emma stopped. Daniel stopped beside her. The same melody, slow, beautiful, sad, and underneath it, they heard something else, a child's voice, whispering, "Help me." Emma's eyes filled with tears. Daniel looked at her, then at the barn. For the first time, he no longer believed they were dealing with an old house making strange noises. Someone was calling for help, and that someone had been waiting inside that property for decades. That night, neither Emma nor Daniel slept well. The music had stopped, but the silence that followed somehow felt worse. Emma lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Daniel was beside her, his eyes closed. Neither of them had mentioned the barn again. Neither wanted to. But both were thinking about the same thing. Elise, the little girl who disappeared in 1948. The little girl whose music box had somehow survived all those years. The little girl whose voice had whispered for help. Emma turned toward the window. The curtains moved gently. She watched them for several seconds. Then she noticed something. The window was closed. There was no wind. She sat up. "Daniel." He opened his eyes. "What?" "Look." He followed her gaze. The curtain moved again. Slowly, as though someone were standing behind it. Daniel got out of bed. He approached the window, pulled the curtain aside. Nothing. Only darkness. The fields stretched beneath the moonlight. Daniel opened the window. Cold air entered. He looked outside. "There's nobody here." Emma stood behind him. "Then why's the curtain moving?" Daniel looked at it. He didn't answer. Then, something moved in the field. Emma grabbed his arm. "Daniel." He froze. At the edge of the property, a little girl stood beneath the moon. White dress, bare feet, long dark hair, exactly as Emma had seen her before. Daniel stared. "Is that Elise?" The girl raised her hand. She pointed toward the house, then toward the ground beneath them. Emma whispered, "What do you want?" The girl didn't move. Then she lifted one finger and pointed directly at Emma. A cold sensation passed through her body. The girl opened her mouth. Even from that distance, Emma could hear her. "Not me." Daniel frowned. What did she say? Emma looked at him. She said, "Not me." The girl pointed toward the barn. Then she disappeared. Not walked away. Not ran. Simply gone. The next morning, Emma woke before sunrise. Daniel was still sleeping. She quietly left the bedroom. The house was dark. She walked downstairs. The smell of lavender filled the hallway, stronger than before. She followed it, past the living room, past the kitchen, toward the old staircase. At the bottom of the stairs was a small wooden door. Emma had never noticed it before. She touched the handle. Locked. Then she saw something carved into the wood. A tiny flower. Lavender. Her fingers traced the carving. Suddenly, a voice whispered behind her, "Emma." She spun around. Nothing. Then the door unlocked. Click. Emma stepped backward. She stared at the handle. Slowly, She reached for it. Before she could open it, Daniel called from upstairs. "Emma?" She jumped. The door immediately locked again. She looked down. The lavender carving was gone. Only old wood remained. At breakfast, Emma told Daniel everything. He listened quietly. When she finished, he didn't laugh. He didn't tell her she was imagining things. Instead, he asked, "What was behind the door?" "I don't know." "We need to find out." Emma stared at him. "You said we weren't going back into the barn." "We're not." He looked toward the hallway. "But this is our house." He reached across the table. "And if something is trying to warn us, we need to know what." Emma squeezed his hand. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. Then Daniel smiled. "We're not leaving." Emma nodded. Together. They spent the morning searching the house, old cabinets, closets, the attic, behind paintings, inside drawers. They found nothing, until Emma discovered an old wooden chest beneath a pile of blankets. The chest was locked. Daniel examined it. No key. Emma touched the lid. The lock opened by itself. They stared at each other. Daniel slowly lifted it. Inside were old photographs, letters, newspapers, and a small leather diary. The first page contained a name, Margaret Whitmore. Emma's eyes widened. Whitmore? The woman from the store? Maybe. Daniel opened the diary. The first pages described ordinary things. Weather, harvests, family dinners. Then the entries became darker. One sentence made Emma stop breathing. October 17th, 1948. Elise says there is someone beneath the house. Daniel continued reading. October 21st. She refuses to sleep alone. Another page. November 2nd. Tonight she heard the music again. Emma looked at Daniel. Keep going. He turned the page. The handwriting became shakier. November 7th. We heard someone knocking beneath the floor. Then another. November 9th. Elise says the woman in white is afraid. Emma frowned. The woman in white? Daniel continued. November 12th. My husband says we must leave. The next page had only one sentence, written in darker ink, almost violently. November 13th. She told us not to open the door. Then, nothing. The diary ended. Emma stared at the final page. That's it? Daniel nodded. That's the last entry. Where is the rest? He looked at the chest. There isn't any. Emma closed her eyes. Something was wrong, very wrong. Then they heard it. A soft melody. From upstairs, the music box. Emma slowly looked toward the ceiling. But we left it in the barn. Daniel stood. I know. The music continued. Slow, beautiful, sad. They followed the sound upstairs. It led them to the bedroom. The music box was sitting on the bed, open, playing. Emma stopped in the doorway. Daniel whispered, That wasn't here. The ballerina turned slowly, around and around, then stopped. The room became silent. Emma stepped closer. Inside the lid, something had been scratched into the wood. A message, 3 words. Don't trust him. Emma's heart sank. Who? The music box suddenly began playing again. But this time, the melody was different. A man's voice whispered from the hallway. You shouldn't have found that. Emma and Daniel turned. No one was there. Then, the front door slammed downstairs. Daniel ran toward the staircase. Emma followed. They reached the entrance. The door was wide open. Outside stood an elderly man. He had been watching the house. Daniel approached him. Can we help you? The man stared at Emma, then at the music box in her hands. His face went pale. You found it. Emma swallowed. Do you know what this is? The man nodded. His voice trembled. Everyone who lived here found it. Daniel frowned. Who are you? The man looked toward the fields. My name is Samuel. He took a step backward. And if you want to survive. He looked directly into Emma's eyes. Whatever you do, don't open the door beneath the barn. Emma's blood ran cold because she suddenly understood. The voice beneath the house had never been asking them to open the door. It had been warning them not to. Samuel turned to leave. Daniel stopped him. Wait. The old man looked back. What happened to Elise? Samuel's eyes filled with sadness. Then he whispered. She opened it. He walked away. Emma watched him disappear down the road. Then, from inside the house, the music box began playing again. This time, there was no melody. Only one repeated note. Over and over, like a warning. And somewhere beneath the barn, something knocked 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. The 3 knocks beneath the barn continued long after Samuel disappeared. Knock, knock, knock. Then silence. Emma stood frozen in the doorway. Daniel was beside her, staring toward the barn. Neither of them spoke. Finally, Emma whispered, "Did you hear that?" Daniel nodded. "I heard it." The fact that he had heard it frightened her more than anything else. Until that moment, there had always been a small part of Emma wondering if perhaps she was imagining things. But now, Daniel had heard it too. There was no explanation left. Something was beneath the property, and it knew they were there. Daniel closed the front door. He locked it, then checked it twice. "We're staying inside tonight." Emma nodded. "I don't want to go near that barn." "We won't." He looked at her. "But tomorrow we're finding out everything." Emma touched the music box still resting in her hands. "About Elise?" "About everyone." That night, Daniel searched the internet for old records. Emma sat beside him at the kitchen table. The laptop screen illuminated their faces in the darkness. They found almost nothing. The farmhouse had been built in 1912. The property had belonged to a family named Whitmore. Then, in 1948, the family disappeared. No bodies, no explanation, no official conclusion, just gone. Daniel leaned back. "There's something missing." "What?" "The records." Emma frowned. "What do you mean?" "There's a 40-year gap." He pointed at the screen. "After the disappearance, the property was supposedly abandoned." "Yes. But someone paid the taxes." Emma stared at him. "Who?" Daniel opened another document. The name appeared. Margaret Whitmore. Emma's eyes widened. "That's the woman from the diary." "Exactly. But she disappeared too." Daniel nodded. "So how was she paying the taxes?" Emma felt a chill. "Maybe she didn't." Daniel looked at her. "Then who did?" Before he could search further, the laptop screen went black. Emma frowned. "Did it die?" Daniel checked the battery. 70%. The screen suddenly turned back on, but the browser was gone. Instead, there was a photograph. An old photograph. Emma stared. It showed the farmhouse. The same house they had bought. The image was dated 1948. A family stood on the porch. The father, the mother, a young boy, and Elise. Emma leaned closer. "Look." Daniel zoomed in. Behind the family, standing in one of the upstairs windows, was a woman, wearing white. Her face was impossible to see. Daniel whispered, "Who is that?" Emma shook her head. "I don't know." Then she noticed something. The woman was standing behind Elise. Her hand rested on the little girl's shoulder. Emma's stomach tightened. "Daniel." "What?" "Look at her hand." The fingers were unnaturally long. Daniel stared. Then the photograph changed. The woman's face slowly became visible. Emma gasped. The screen went black. The laptop shut itself down. Silence. Then, the music box began playing upstairs. Emma looked toward the ceiling. We left it downstairs. Daniel stood. Stay here. No. She grabbed his arm. We go together. They climbed the stairs. The music became louder with every step. It came from the bedroom. When they reached the doorway, the music stopped. The room was empty. The music box sat on the floor. Closed. Daniel approached it. Emma remained near the door. Don't touch it. He stopped. Why? I don't know. Suddenly, the bedroom door slammed shut behind them. Emma screamed. Daniel rushed toward it. The handle wouldn't move. It's locked. Open it. I'm trying. He pulled harder. Nothing. Then, the wardrobe door opened by itself. Slowly. Inside was darkness. Emma stared. Something was hanging from the ceiling. A child's white dress. Old, yellowed, covered in dust. Daniel looked at it. That's not ours. Emma stepped closer. There was something embroidered on the chest. A name. Elise. Then the wardrobe door slammed shut. The bedroom door unlocked. They ran. They didn't sleep that night. At sunrise, Daniel suggested they leave. Emma was surprised. I thought you wanted to investigate. I do. Then why leave? Because whatever is happening here. He looked toward the house. It's getting worse. Emma was quiet. Then she said, I don't think it wants us to leave. Daniel looked at her. What? I think it brought us here. He frowned. Emma, think about it. She picked up the diary. The music box appeared. The girl appeared. The door opened. And now we find photographs. She looked directly at him. This isn't random. Daniel slowly sat down. What are you saying? I think the house wants us to find something. They spent the entire afternoon searching, behind walls, under floorboards, inside closets, in the attic. Eventually Emma found something hidden beneath the old fireplace, a loose stone. She pulled it out. Behind it was a small metal box. Daniel opened it. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all addressed to the same person. Elise. Emma opened the first. The handwriting was unfamiliar. My sweet girl. She read further. If you hear her calling, do not answer. Emma looked at Daniel. Who is her? He shook his head. She opened another letter. She is not your mother. Another. The woman in white only looks like her. Another. She lives beneath the house. Emma's hands began shaking. Then she found the final letter. It was dated November 13th, 1948. The same date the family disappeared. Emma opened it. Only one sentence had been written. If anyone finds this, tell Elise that I tried to save her. Emma stared at the words. Someone survived. Daniel nodded. Apparently. But who? Before he could answer, they heard a noise outside. A woman's voice, calling from the field. Emma. They froze. The voice came again. Emma. Daniel grabbed her hand. Don't answer. The voice became louder. Emma. She walked toward the window. Daniel held her back. Don't. Then Emma saw her. The woman in white, standing at the edge of the field. But this time, she wasn't looking at Emma. She was looking toward the barn. And beside her stood Elise. The little girl was crying. The woman reached toward her. Elise pulled away. Then she looked directly at Emma. She raised one hand and pointed toward the ground. The barn. Again. Emma whispered, She wants us to go there. Daniel shook his head. No. The woman in white suddenly turned toward the house. Even from that distance, Emma could see her face. And the woman smiled. Not kindly, not warmly. A slow, unnatural smile. Then the woman lifted her hand. She pointed directly at Daniel. Emma's blood ran cold. The woman whispered something. Although the windows were closed, Emma heard every word. "He's already mine." Daniel suddenly gasped. He grabbed his chest. "Daniel!" He fell to his knees. Emma rushed toward him. His eyes were open, but they weren't looking at her. They were staring toward the barn. And for one terrifying second, his expression became completely empty. Then he whispered, "Emma." She held his face. "I'm here." His eyes slowly focused. "Where am I?" "In the house." He looked confused. "I don't remember sitting down." Emma hugged him tightly, but over his shoulder. She saw something in the hallway. A little girl. Elise, standing perfectly still. She was looking at Daniel. Then she slowly shook her head. No, Emma understood. Elise wasn't warning them about the house. She wasn't warning them about the barn. She was warning Emma about Daniel. And somewhere beneath the property, something began to laugh. Emma didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Elise standing in the hallway, the little girl's pale face, her frightened eyes, the slow movement of her head. No. That single gesture had become an endless question inside Emma's mind. No what? No to the barn? No to Daniel? Or no to something else entirely? She turned toward her husband. Daniel was asleep. At least, he appeared to be. His breathing was steady, his face looked peaceful. But Emma couldn't forget what had happened earlier. The way his eyes had gone empty, the way he had stared toward the barn, and the woman's voice. "He's already mine." Emma slowly reached for his hand. It was cold, much colder than it should have been. She pulled the blanket over him. Then she heard something, a faint scratching sound, from beneath the bed. Emma froze. Scratch. Scratch. She stared at the darkness beneath her. Daniel? He didn't move. The scratching continued. Then, a child's voice whispered, "Emma." She stopped breathing. The voice came from beneath the bed. "Emma." She slowly leaned forward. Her hand trembled as she reached toward the floor. Then Daniel suddenly sat upright. Emma screamed. He looked at her, confused. "What happened?" She pointed beneath the bed. There was someone there. Daniel turned on the lamp. Nothing. He got down on his knees, looked beneath the bed. Empty. He stood. "Emma." "I heard her." "Who?" "Elise." Daniel stared at her. Then something changed in his expression. Not fear, recognition. Emma noticed immediately. "You know her." Daniel frowned. "What?" "You recognized her name." "No, I didn't." "Yes, you did." He looked away. Emma stepped closer. "Daniel." He remained silent. "Tell me the truth." Finally, he whispered, "I've been dreaming about her." Emma's heart sank. "Since when?" "Before we moved here." Daniel sat on the edge of the bed. His hands were shaking. "I didn't tell you because I thought it was just a dream." "What kind of dream?" He stared at the floor. "There's a little girl." Emma's voice became quiet. "Elise?" "I didn't know her name." "What happens?" "She's always standing in the field." Emma's breathing stopped. "Just like tonight?" Daniel nodded. "She always points toward the barn." Emma sat beside him. "What else?" He hesitated. "There's a woman." "The woman in white?" "Yes." "What does she do?" Daniel looked at Emma. "She stands behind Elise." "Does she speak?" "Sometimes." "What does she say?" His eyes filled with fear. "She tells me to open the door." Emma's blood ran cold. "What door?" Daniel slowly looked toward the bedroom window. The door beneath the barn. They didn't wait until morning. They got dressed. Daniel took 2 flashlights. Emma took the diary. Together, they walked toward the barn. The moon was hidden behind clouds. The fields were dark. No insects, no birds, nothing. Only the sound of their footsteps. When they reached the barn, the door was already open. Daniel looked at Emma. "I locked this." Emma whispered, "I know." They entered. The music box was sitting on the old table, closed. Neither touched it. Daniel walked toward the back wall. According to the diary, there had once been a cellar beneath the property, but they had searched the farmhouse. There was no cellar. Then Emma remembered something. The letters. What? She said the house had something beneath it. She opened the diary. Near the final pages there was a drawing, a rough map, the farmhouse, the barn, a tunnel connecting them. Emma pointed. "Look." Daniel followed the line. "There's an entrance." "Where?" She turned the page. "Under the barn." They began searching the floor. Wooden boards, dust, old tools. Nothing. Then Emma noticed a strange marking, a lavender flower carved into the wood. She touched it. The floor moved. A hidden panel opened. Beneath it was a staircase, dark, narrow, descending into the earth. Emma whispered, "That's impossible." Daniel stared into the darkness. "We found it." A cold breeze rose from below. It smelled of lavender, and something else, something metallic. Emma held Daniel's hand. "We shouldn't go down there." He looked at her. "You're right." Neither moved. Then a child's voice came from the darkness. "Please." Emma closed her eyes. "Elise?" the voice answered. "Please." Daniel stepped onto the first stair. Emma grabbed his arm. "Wait." He looked back. "She needs help." "How do you know?" "I don't." He descended another step. Emma followed. The staircase seemed much longer than it should have been. 10 steps, 20, 30. The air grew colder. The sounds of the world above disappeared. At the bottom, they found a corridor. Stone walls, ancient, wet. The corridor stretched into darkness. Emma's flashlight revealed drawings on the walls, children, families, a house, and a woman, always the same woman, dressed in white. Her face had been scratched away. Emma touched one drawing. "Who is she?" Daniel didn't answer. He was looking at another, a drawing of a little girl. Beside her, a man. Emma recognized him. "Daniel." He turned. "What?" "That's you." He stared at the drawing. The little girl was Elise, and the man standing beside her looked exactly like Daniel. Same eyes, same face, same scar above the eyebrow. Daniel stepped backward. "That's impossible." Emma's voice trembled. "You're not supposed to be here." Suddenly, the music box began playing from somewhere deep within the tunnel. Emma grabbed Daniel's hand. "Let's go." But he didn't move. He was staring ahead. A doorway had appeared at the end of the corridor, an old wooden door, the same one from his dreams. Daniel whispered, "That's it." Emma shook her head. "No." He walked toward it. "Daniel." He didn't stop. Emma followed. When he reached the door, he placed his hand on the handle. The moment he touched it, a woman's voice whispered, "Welcome home." Daniel's eyes closed. Emma grabbed his arm. "Daniel, don't open it." He looked at her. His face was expressionless. Then he smiled, a smile Emma had never seen before. "Why?" She stepped backward. "Because Elise told us not to." Daniel tilted his head. "Elise." His voice sounded different, deeper, colder. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Daniel." He placed his hand on the door, and from the other side, someone knocked. "Knock, knock, knock." Emma whispered, "Don't." Daniel turned the handle. The door began to open. A terrible cold swept through the tunnel. and behind the door stood Elise. But she wasn't alone. The woman in white stood behind her. One hand rested on the girl's shoulder. Elise looked directly at Emma. Her eyes were full of tears. Then she whispered, "I'm sorry." The woman smiled, and Daniel stepped through the doorway. To be continued.